1993, the distinguished U.S. television show 60 Minutes began airing a long-running feature series called Genius, sometimes called Savants and Genius. What's a savant? A savant is a prodigy of nature who can process data, names, numbers, dates, or images with computer-like speed and recall, but functions with great success only in that one area of mental processing. Among the savants featured on 60 Minutes was George Finn, whose silhouette you see here on the right. He was one of the inspirations for the character Raymond in the Academy Award-winning film Rain Man. Among musicians featured on CBS were Alma Deutscher and Jay Greenberg. They were not savants, they were musical prodigies, just normal kids who happened to have an off-the-charts capacity to process musical sounds. In 2017, 60 Minutes featured the then 12-year-old musical prodigy Alma Deutscher, comparing her to Mozart. Like Mozart, Deutscher could name all the notes of the scale almost from birth, was composing by the age of 4, had written an opera for the city of Vienna at 12. However, the music of young Deutscher, and I sincerely do not wish to be hurtful here, sounds to me like slightly romanticized Mozart. You can form your own opinion by listening on YouTube. This music looks backward 200 years, as might a scientist today hoping to invent the steam engine or a vaccine for smallpox. Pleasing as the music sounds, it's musical mimicry of the style of a bygone era, original but not transformative. Earlier in 2004, 13-year-old Jay Greenberg appeared on 60 Minutes, and a spokesman from the Juilliard School of Music said of him, "We're talking about a prodigy of the level of the greatest prodigies in history, the likes of Mozart, Mendelssohn, and Saint-Saëns," end quote. Young Greenberg's musical creations were original, but again, they were retrospective. In 2017, I asked Maren Alsop, the conductor of the Baltimore Symphony, about the music of young Greenberg because she had conducted recordings of some of his pieces at the time. Also, Alsop said to me, quote, "Had this music been written by a 40-year-old rather than by a youngster, few of us would have paid attention," end quote. What has happened to Greenberg? Well, according to an internet post of 2015, he's moved to Auckland, New Zealand, where he was studying music. But there have been no internet postings that I can find in the last 7 years. For all intents and purposes, he has simply disappeared from public consciousness. Again, that's typical of the overwhelming majority of prodigies. Psychologists estimate that only 1 in every 10,000 children is highly gifted. How many of those prodigies ultimately change the world, become geniuses? 1 in 10,000, 1 in 100,000? Well, your guess is as good as mine. But again, most prodigies don't become geniuses. It's possible, but it's statistically a real long shot. Parents, however, tend to think that that long shot, the next Mozart or the next Picasso, is the norm, whereas it's not. Maybe parents are too optimistic. Maybe sometimes they are easily duped by their own wishful thinking. How else can we explain the baby Einstein phenomenon? Remember back in 2001, the Walt Disney Corporation began to market Baby Einstein, children's instructional media products, to hundreds of thousands of aspirational parents around the world. Babies and toddlers watch videos designed to improve verbal skills, introduce the concept of numbers, enhance color recognition, and reinforce simple geometric patterns. Soon, baby Einstein was joined by baby Mozart and baby Da Vinci, baby Monet, and baby Shakespeare. Ultimately, however, these genius-enhancing products proved to be disappointing. Just watching videos improved nothing. None of these baby Einsteins or Einstein clones could be shown to enhance a child's intelligence or creativity in the least. In 2009, the Walt Disney Corporation issued an apology, a recall, and offered to return $15.99 for each product sold. A headline in the New York Times laughed, "No Einstein in your crib? Get a refund." All of this leads to the point I wish to make. Parents, whether to facilitate the development of their child or to enhance their own self-esteem, may push too hard with unrealistic expectations, and in so doing, they create within the home what I call the prodigy bubble. And the environment inside the prodigy bubble may be harmful. For the child, the dangers in the prodigy bubble are many. First of all, there's the pressure. If relaxation proves to be the key to creative insight, how can a child be creative in a pressure-packed, stressful environment? Moreover, the prodigy bubble is filled with a relentlessly positive agenda to push the child to the top. Pressure builds by an adherence to strict rules, a tolerance for nothing but perfection, long periods of working alone, domineering mothers and fathers, today's overly vigilant helicopter parents, and perhaps most pernicious, attention to a single activity. At a very young age, the prodigy is typecast for life, their identity set forever. But, as futurist architect Buckminster Fuller observed, quote, "There is nothing in a caterpillar that tells you it's going to be a beautiful butterfly." Children don't always immediately know what they might be good at. Many prodigies in math and music, for example, who have been miscast by parents go on to find a new passion and distinguish themselves in other fields, such as law or medicine. Other prodigies, having been miscast or pushed too hard, driven by parents rather than by a love of the activity, burn out and disappear, leaving a residue of disappointment in their own minds and in the minds of their parents. Remember, as we have seen, it's not external motivation, but rather internal motivation that drives the true genius. In her book, Off the Charts, The Hidden Lives and Lessons of American Child Prodigies, Ann Holbert describes dozens of prodigies, all but one of whom are today wholly forgotten. She concludes with a cautionary note, quote, "All too often, the impulse to herald youthful talents risks inspiring swelled heads and raising sky-high hopes that are likely to be disappointed," end quote. It seems that often the prodigy is cut off, isolated socially, limited to one field of intellectual endeavor, a willing prisoner inside a pressure-packed yet suffocating environment. Is there a better environment, one that gets better results, leads to exceptional human accomplishment, to transformative accomplishment, indeed to genius? If there is, it may rest in what I suggest are the real drivers of genius. As applied to children, these work best in what I might call not the prodigy bubble, but the prodigy barnyard. Not a limited enclosure, but an open-air expanse with lower levels of pressure. This environment encourages curiosity and exploration, offers experiences across a wide variety of activities, and exposure to a wide range of creatures, encourages socialization as a way of building empathy and leadership, allows for the opportunity for failure and the resilience that comes from it, and finally tolerates a degree of independent thinking, of disagreement, rebellion, and even chaos. If you have a child whom you believe has exceptional ability, is gifted, what's the best way to proceed? The constricting prodigy bubble or the more chaotic free-range barnyard? Well, I'm no expert here, but at least I have the good sense to call upon someone who is. So let's meet our guest.